He just dude crazy. Like, um, he just talk a lot of shit, and I just like to sit there.
NBA YoungBoy just dropped a bomb about Birdman, and it's wild. According to YoungBoy, Birdman's been using him and pulling strings to sabotage him behind the scenes. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. I've got all the details, so let's break it down. When the real got too real, Lil Homie called out the OG. The streets been talking, but ain't nobody expected what dropped on June 9th, 2024. When DJ Academics posted that track on his YouTube, the whole hood knew something was different. NBA YoungBoy's Tales of War wasn't just another diss record. This was straight-up family business aired out for everybody to see, and it hit different than anything we heard in a minute. Real recognized real, and what YoungBoy laid down was a real as pain you could hear in somebody's voice. What made this whole situation even more cold-blooded was that this track was the last thing YoungBoy recorded before the feds came through and raided his crib in Utah back in April. So, Homebuyer was already going through it, feeling the pressure from all sides, and then he had to deal with finding out that his supposed father figure was playing games with his head and his paper. The line that had everybody's jaws on the floor was when YoungBoy straight up said what everybody in the streets already knew, but nobody wanted to say out loud. This wasn't no subliminal shots or coded messages. Young Bull went straight at Birdman's neck with some real talk that cut deeper than any physical beef ever could. How has your relationship blossomed throughout the years? Is just dude crazy? Like, is just talking out of, and I just like to sit there and that's my father. I like when he popped this. Looking back at this clip, you can see how naive Lil Homie was back then. Talking about how he liked when Birdman would pop that, not knowing that all that flashy talk was just game being run on him. The youngster was genuinely feeling the energy, thinking he had found a real one who was going to put him on and show him the ropes. Little did he know, the OG was setting him up for the long con. Now, let's keep it 100 about who we dealing with here. Brian Birdman Williams ain't just some random cat. This dude been running the game since before most of these young rappers was even born. Cash Money Records been his empire, and he turned that joint into a billion-dollar operation by finding young, hungry artists and molding them into superstars. His track record was solid. He took Lil Wayne from a shorty in the projects to one of the greatest rappers alive, built Drake into a global phenomenon, and turned Nicki Minaj into the queen of rap. When Birdman first peeped YoungBoy around 2018, he saw the same raw talent and hunger that reminded him of when he first met Wayne. The young cat from Baton Rouge was making serious noise with his street anthems and emotional confessions, but he was also catching bodies left and right with the law, making him a headache for his label Atlantic Records to deal with. I think NBA YoungBoy might be the biggest rapper. I said that 5 years ago. What you mean big when you say big? Ain't no bigger than NBA YoungBoy. Numbers don't lie. Yeah, he the biggest YouTube artist right now in the world. And he behind the wall. Birdman was really laying it on thick with the praise, talking about how YoungBoy was going to be the biggest thing since sliced bread. And you got to understand, when a legend like Birdman co-signs you like that, it's like getting blessed by the rap gods themselves. Atlantic Records was struggling to figure out how to handle YoungBoy's constant legal drama and unpredictable moves. So, when Birdman stepped up offering guidance, it seemed like divine intervention. The OG positioned himself as more than just a business partner. He was selling the dream of being a father figure to a young cat who desperately needed that guidance. YoungBoy had been through more trauma than most grown men coming up in the streets of Baton Rouge, where you either make it out or become another statistic. When Birdman came through talking that real family talk, offering protection and wisdom, it was exactly what the youngster needed to hear. Their first collab, We Popping, on YoungBoy's Until Death Call My Name album, showed the potential of what they could build together. The chemistry was undeniable. You had the veteran's smooth confidence mixed with the young bull's raw intensity. When they announced From the Bayou in 2018, it felt like the perfect marriage of Louisiana legends passing the torch to the next generation. You remember? But I'm just saying, when that little boy get his mind right and he come from under this boy and understand who he is, cause you know, talking all them, they up in age. They 30, his 20. But you think that going through ain't doing nothing but helping him to his path to do that? Though, of course. Yeah, They ain't making him nothing but a monster. Birdman was talking all that good game about how YoungBoy's struggles was just molding him into something greater. The way he broke it down, all the legal troubles and street drama was just part of the process of creating a monster in the rap game. For a young cat, who was feeling lost and overwhelmed by all the pressure, hearing that from a legend who had been through it all before was like getting that validation he needed. But here's where the game gets real dirty. While Birdman was talking all this father-son, mentor-protege love, there were cats in the streets who already knew what time it was. When From the Bayou finally dropped in December 2021 after multiple delays, real ones noticed that it felt more like a YoungBoy solo project than a true collaboration. Birdman's name was on the credits, but his presence was minimal at best. The streets started whispering that something wasn't adding up. You had Birdman out here claiming the young bull like he was his blood son, but when it came time to really show up and put in work, the energy wasn't matching the talk. And then cats started remembering how Birdman had been playing these same games for years, especially with how he did Lil Wayne dirty when Wayne tried to level up. The real ones in the know started trying to school YoungBoy about the patterns they were seeing. Lil Wayne himself tried to drop some knowledge on the young cat back in 2020 with that line on multiple flows. And I had told YoungBoy to watch out for old head, but when you're young and hungry and somebody's promising you the world, it's hard to listen to warnings about the very person who's supposed to be your savior. Wayne's warning wasn't just some casual advice between colleagues. That was a real one trying to prevent another young soldier from falling into the same trap that almost destroyed his own career. Wayne had been through the whole cycle with Birdman, from the love and promises to the legal battles and lawsuits over $51 million in withheld royalties. The game Wayne was trying to put YoungBoy up on was simple. Don't trust everything that glitters, especially when it's coming from somebody who got a history of leaving bodies in his wake. But YoungBoy was in a vulnerable spot. He was dealing with serious legal pressure, needed guidance from somebody who understood the business, and Birdman was offering everything he thought he needed: mentorship, connections, and most importantly, somebody who claimed to genuinely care about his well-being beyond just the money. As 2022 and 2023 rolled around, Birdman kept up the facade, even going as far as defending YoungBoy publicly when podcasters like Joe Budden tried to come for him. On the surface, it looked like a real mentor protecting his protege from industry haters. But underneath all that public support, cracks were starting to show in the foundation. YoungBoy was starting to peep game on how Birdman operated. The promises that sounded so sweet in the beginning was starting to feel hollow. The father-figure love that had drawn him and was beginning to feel more like manipulation. And most devastating of all, the unconditional support he thought he could count on was revealing itself to be anything but unconditional. The realization that he had been played by somebody he trusted with his life and career hit YoungBoy harder than any physical beef ever could. Here was a young cat who had already survived more trauma than most people see in a lifetime, and yet getting betrayed by his supposed father figure cut deeper than bullets or court cases ever could. As 2024 rolled around and YoungBoy found himself facing serious federal charges while under house arrest in Utah, the weight of Birdman's alleged betrayal became too heavy to carry. The young rapper, known for keeping it 100 in his music no matter what, decided it was time to let the streets know exactly what type of games was being played behind closed doors. The result was a 6-minute confession that would expose not just his own pain, but the true nature of one of hip-hop's most powerful players. The realest diss ever when pain turned into bars. When Tays of War hit the internet, every real one in the culture knew we was witnessing something special. This wasn't your typical rap beef with all that tough guy somebody he considered family. And every bar dripped with the kind of pain that you can't fake. The track opened up with production that matched YoungBoy's mental state, dark, haunting, and filled with the kind of energy that lets you know this wasn't no regular day in the studio. But it was when Homie started spitting that the real damage got done. This wasn't just bars for the sake of bars. This was therapy session meets street justice, and every word carried weight. The moment that had the whole culture shook was when YoungBoy dropped that line about Stunner never loving him and how he should have listened to Carter. Real recognized real, and what that line represented was bigger than just a diss. It was a young soldier finally admitting that he had been outmaneuvered by a veteran who had been playing these games since before YoungBoy was even born. The reference to Lil Wayne's warning wasn't lost on anybody who really knows the culture. Wayne had tried to school the youngster about the type of individual Birdman really was, but YoungBoy was too caught up in the promises and the potential to really hear what the OG was trying to tell him. Now, he was publicly admitting that he should have listened to somebody who had been through the exact same situation. What made this line so devastating wasn't just the admission of being wrong, it was the vulnerability that came with it. In a culture where showing weakness can get you labeled as soft, YoungBoy was willing to put his emotions on display and admit that he had been played. That takes a different kind of strength, the kind that separates the real ones from the fake ones. The track kept going deeper into the alleged betrayal, with YoungBoy painting a picture of promises that never materialized and love that was revealed to be conditional. He wasn't just talking about business disagreements. He was describing the emotional manipulation of someone who had positioned himself as a father figure only to use that trust for personal gain. The timing of the track made everything hit even harder. This was recorded right before YoungBoy's arrest, meaning he was processing these feelings of betrayal while simultaneously facing the possibility of serious prison time. The vulnerability and isolation he must have been feeling during that period comes through in every bar of the song. You know, a lot of this like Go On and Brother. You know, a lot of stem from New Orleans. MHM. You know, that's like where the real gangsters come from. That's where a lot of got blooded first. It's kind of like where we learned a lot of this clip hits different when you think about it in the context of Days of War. YoungBoy had always shown mad respect for New Orleans and its influence on Louisiana culture. But the education he got from Birdman, one of New Orleans' most successful exports, included lessons about betrayal and manipulation that he never signed up to learn. One of the most heartbreaking aspects of the track was how YoungBoy exposed his own emotional needs and how they had been exploited. The young cat who had built his reputation on being a street soldier willing to put his emotions on wax was revealing just how much he had needed the guidance and support that Birdman had appeared to offer. The violation of that trust was made even more painful by the fact that YoungBoy had genuine love for somebody who apparently saw him as nothing more than a business opportunity. The financial implications also came under the microscope in the track. YoungBoy was suggesting that Birdman had dangled lucrative deals and opportunities in front of him without ever following through. This pattern was eerily similar to the accusations that Lil Wayne had made during his legal battle with Birdman, where Wayne claimed millions in royalties had been withheld. But what really separated Days of War from your typical diss track was the tone. Instead of anger and aggression, YoungBoy was serving up pure sadness and disappointment. This wasn't an artist trying to destroy an enemy. This was a young man mourning the loss of somebody he had loved and trusted. The pain in his voice was unmistakable, and it hit different than any aggressive bars could have. The track also revealed how deep Birdman had inserted himself into YoungBoy's personal life. There were implications that the veteran had overstepped boundaries, getting involved in YoungBoy's relationships and personal business in ways that went way beyond what a mentor should be doing. This level of control and manipulation painted a picture of somebody who was using emotional manipulation as a tool to maintain power over a younger artist. The reference to Wayne's warning carried extra weight because it highlighted a pattern that went beyond just YoungBoy's individual experience. Wayne's relationship with Birdman had followed the same playbook. Initial love and support followed by financial disputes and eventual legal warfare. The fact that Wayne had tried to warn YoungBoy showed that he recognized the signs of history repeating itself. The production choices on the track amplified the emotional impact. The melancholic instrumentation and sparse arrangement created space for YoungBoy's words to hit with maximum force. Every pause in his delivery, every crack in his voice carried meaning, emphasizing just how personal these revelations were. Industry heads were quick to pick up on the broader implications of what YoungBoy was saying. If his accusations were on point, they painted a picture of a powerful figure who had been using his position and reputation to manipulate young artists for years. The behavior that YoungBoy described was consistent with accusations that had been made against Birdman by other former associates over the years. What was also telling was Birdman's response, or lack thereof. Instead of coming back with the typical aggressive counterattack that characterizes most rap beefs, Birdman chose to stay quiet. That silence spoke volumes, either because the accusations were too accurate for comfort, or because the veteran recognized that engaging would only make the situation worse. The reaction from the culture was immediate and divided. Some praised YoungBoy for his honesty and courage in speaking truth to power, viewing the track as a powerful statement about the exploitation that happens in the music industry. Others questioned whether putting such personal business out in the streets was the right move, but nobody could deny the authenticity of YoungBoy's pain or the power of his delivery. The track also raised important questions about the nature of mentorship in hip-hop culture. The relationship between established veterans and rising artists has always been complex, involving elements of guidance, business partnership, and sometimes exploitation. YoungBoy's experience highlighted the potential dangers when these relationships become too personal or when power imbalances get abused. Tays of War also served as a wake-up call for other young artists who might be in similar situations. The track demonstrated the importance of having real ones around you who can spot game being run on you, even when you're too close to the situation to see it clearly. YoungBoy's willingness to admit his mistakes publicly provided a valuable lesson about the importance of listening to warnings from people who have been where you're trying to go. As the initial shock of the track began to settle, it became clear that YoungBoy had accomplished something significant beyond just airing out his grievances. He had created a piece of art that spoke to anyone who had ever experienced the pain of misplaced trust or the disappointment of discovering that somebody you loved didn't have your best interests at heart. The track served as both personal therapy for YoungBoy and a public service announcement for the culture. It demonstrated that even the strongest soldiers can be vulnerable to manipulation, and that recognizing and calling out that manipulation is a sign of strength, not weakness. Most importantly, it showed that keeping it real sometimes means admitting when you've been played, no matter how much it might hurt your pride. From street war to peace treaty, when real recognized real. After Tays of War dropped, the entire hip-hop community was holding its breath, waiting to see how this situation was going to play out. The streets were buzzing with speculation about whether Birdman was going to clap back with his own diss track, or if this was going to turn into one of those long, drawn-out beefs that tears the culture apart. But what nobody saw coming was how this whole situation was going to flip into something completely different. The silence from Birdman's camp was deafening at first. Real ones knew that when an OG like Birdman doesn't immediately respond to getting called out, it usually means one of two things. Either he's plotting something major, or the accusations hit too close to home for comfort. As months passed without any retaliation, it became clear that this wasn't going to follow the typical script of rap beef. What started happening instead was something much more mature and real than anybody expected. By August 2025, word started getting out that both sides were open to having a conversation about squashing their differences. For cats who had been following the situation from the beginning, this was a surprise development that showed both men were willing to put pride aside for the greater good. Moment came when they agreed to meet face-to-face in New Orleans, the city that had shaped both of their careers and represented everything they both loved about Louisiana culture. When that reunion finally happened in August 2025, it was described as emotional and real, with both men putting their egos aside to have an honest conversation about what had gone wrong. But what I realized what really happened, I don't know if it was an argument or whatever. He got in there and then he was just like, yo, let's calm this down. And he got both of them dudes who was seemingly that could have been like a little situation. I don't know if it would be whatever. Just out of respect for him. They were just like, all right, we good. And then that's where I realized that's kind of like his worth, especially to these young dudes. This clip from DJ Academics talking about Birdman stepping in to handle a situation backstage shows the complexity of their relationship. Even during their beef, there was still an underlying respect that both men had for each other. Birdman's ability to command respect and calm down heated situations demonstrated the qualities that had originally attracted YoungBoy to him as a mentor. The reconciliation process wasn't no overnight thing. Both men had to work through some serious hurt feelings and damaged trust. For YoungBoy, It meant confronting his own vulnerability and processing the pain of feeling betrayed by somebody he had loved like family. For Birdman, it probably meant acknowledging that his actions had caused real damage to somebody he claimed to care about. What came out of their conversations was a more mature understanding of their relationship and what had gone wrong. Industry sources were saying that the reconciliation was possible because both men recognized that their shared goals and mutual respect were more important than their personal grievances. The first public sign that they had worked things out came in October 2025, when Birdman made a surprise appearance at one of YoungBoy's shows. The moment was captured on video and went viral immediately, showing YoungBoy bringing Birdman on stage to perform "We Popping" for the first time ever in front of a live crowd. The crowd went absolutely crazy, and you could see the genuine chemistry between the two performers was still there. Yeah, but the reason why he gets so much respect is because he's so respectful with people when he meets them. Nah, he is respectful, though. Yeah, he was so respectful. He didn't have to show me the type of love he showed me now. He is. This observation about Birdman's character provides insight into why the reconciliation was possible in the first place. Despite all the business drama and hurt feelings, there was still a foundation of mutual respect that could be rebuilt. Birdman's reputation for treating people right on a personal level, separate from business dealings, suggested that the problems between him and YoungBoy might have been more about miscommunication and unmet expectations than fundamental character issues. The business implications of their reconciliation were immediate and obvious. Birdman started traveling with YoungBoy on his Make America Slime Again tour, serving not just as a performer, but as an advisor and protector of YoungBoy's financial interests. The veteran's presence served multiple purposes. It showed the industry that they were back on the same team, provided YoungBoy with experienced guidance during a crucial time in his career, and helped ensure that the young cat maximized every dollar available during his tour run. How many more millions we need for that next tour? About 300-400. How much? 300 to 400 million. Easy. 3 to 4? If they ain't talking that, don't even call. When Birdman started talking about YoungBoy potentially securing a $300 to $400 million tour deal, it showed that the reconciliation wasn't just about personal feelings. It was strategic business as well. The veteran's experience in building massive commercial success stories was being applied to YoungBoy's career in ways that could benefit both parties financially. The reconciliation also gave both men a chance to learn from what had gone wrong in their relationship. For YoungBoy, the experience taught him the importance of setting boundaries and protecting his interests while still remaining open to rebuilding valuable relationships. The young cat had learned to assert himself and demand respect while not letting past hurt prevent him from moving forward. For Birdman, the situation provided an opportunity to reflect on his mentoring approach and how his actions affect young artists. The veteran had faced similar conflicts with other protégés before, most notably with Lil Wayne, and the pattern suggested that some changes in approach might be necessary. And he pulled me aside and said, "Listen, man, on my mother, Ms. Gladys, man, we're going to do this interview, man. That's I don't hold nothing above that. So, I'm saying on my mama, Ms. Gladys, who passed away when he was 5. By the way, I'm telling you we're going to do this interview. We're going to get it in. Yeah, we're going to get it in." This clip reveals Birdman's personal investment in maintaining relationships and following through on his word. When he invokes his deceased mother's name while making promises, it shows a level of sincerity that goes beyond just business considerations. This personal approach to building relationships likely played a role in making the reconciliation possible. The public nature of their reconciliation also served important purposes for the culture. The reconciliation demonstrated that pride and ego don't always have to prevent conflict from being resolved when both parties are willing to have honest conversations. The impact on both of their careers was immediate and positive. YoungBoy benefited from Birdman's industry connections and business expertise during a crucial period when he was transitioning from his legal troubles back to focusing fully on his music. Birdman, meanwhile, strengthened his association with one of hip-hop's hottest young stars, reinforcing his reputation as somebody who can spot and develop talent. Their example provided a blueprint for how industry conflicts might be resolved constructively rather than destructively. The story of NBA YoungBoy and Birdman's relationship, from mentorship to betrayal to reconciliation, ultimately serves as a real-life example of complicated dynamics that shape the music industry. It demonstrates both the potential benefits and dangers of mentor-protégé relationships, the importance of clear communication and mutual respect, and the possibility of redemption even after serious conflicts. If you enjoyed watching this video, then go ahead and click on any of the cards on your screen for more.